You're listening to the Full Gambit podcast with J. Michael Phoenix. Straight talk. No BS. No BS. Inviting you to get off your ass and talk to somebody.
Hey guys, welcome to 2023. It is the Full Gambit podcast. Another great episode. We're going to take a break from crypto today. Yes, it is recording. I mean, look at us. We're in high definition, 4K, all over YouTube and everywhere podcasts can be heard. We're going to talk about 2023 and the year that it needs to be. Here in studio with me is a very good friend of mine all the way from Houston, Texas. Our very first international guest, Miss PJ Douglas-Sands, branding extraordinaire and the founder of MoneyWorks, DS3, and Lux. Oh my, she's the one who kind of gotten me serious in my entrepreneurial pursuit. She used to nag me all the way back then. I am not going to say how long we've known each other, but it's been a while. She saved me from a thought, almost married a real bad one. And, oh man, time has flown. We've worked on so many projects together. We've helped launch a lot of good brands.
We have.
We've seen a lot of brands fail.
They do.
But we are here in 2023 and to help people to navigate what not to do and what they can do to evolve.
That's what you got to do. You got to stay evolving.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Phoenix.
That in itself is a brand. People don't know that.
Hey.
That was a evolving door. J. Isaacs to J. Phoenix from the slave name Lamont Isaac Johnson.
Oh, wow.
Legally got it changed around in 2019, officially right before my daughter was born. Mm-hmm. And there's still some confusion around it. Someone was fighting the other day. Someone called me by my old government name. I was like, no, that's not his name. Same as this. And I recently picked up a contract where someone was just calling me Jay Isaacs, and they didn't realize I had legally changed my name.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Well, sometimes people do use those other pseudonyms as DBAs along the way, depending. I have a lot of flack when people go, PJ, that ain't your name. What your name is? What's your real name? No, really, what that mean?
What do you mean PJ isn't your name?
Oh, and people try to argue me down. Like, I've had to pull out my driver's license because it's similar in a brand situation sometimes. Yes. So to make it easier, I did make sure that all of my documents match exactly what my personal brand reflects, and I feel my true identity. So it happens. Speaking
about branding, how much has changed since you first walked down this very narrow road? Because it's like the road is so thin. There's very little mistakes that you can make because it could wreck an entire identity. How much has changed since then?
Well, in 2001, to date myself.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know all the way back then, by the way. I did not.
In 2001, I did a degree and certification program at the University of Texas in global entrepreneurship. And part of what I decided in that was that branding started to become a thing with regard to corporate identity. And I remember doing a case study on Southwest Airlines. And that was like oh my gosh, I can't believe this airline is doing this differently. And that made me understand that no matter how big or small you are, you have to make sure you have a unique brand that matches your value proposition. So I really started the branding journey to make sure it encompassed everything that I believed in 2001 when I was working over the bridge at Atlantis Paradise Island.
Oh, wow. So that woke you up then, right? You've applied so much of that to so many different people and entities.
Yes.
What would you say are the top 5 things anybody that's taking themselves seriously wants to push their brand to the next level? What do you pay attention to? What 5 things?
5 things. Your purpose, meaning corporate or personal, your mission, your vision, your short-term goal, and your long-term goal.
So purpose, mission, vision,
short-term goal, and long-term goal.
Okay. No medium.
No, because your medium are the baby steps that get you to the long. And if you're focused on one of the great books that I'm reading now called The 12-Week Year.
Okay.
If you think of your life in quarters, that's your short term. And if you build 4 great quarters, you've had a great year. All destined to meet your long-term goal of where your purpose, your God-given defined purpose, needs to align with your mission and your vision. So, for me, I have multiple companies because they're all following my purpose that I feel God has put me on this planet for.
And what is your purpose? If you could, just tell us, what is your purpose?
I feel God has called me to help entrepreneurs move from financial insecurity to financial security.
Why are so many people, especially people of color, financially insecure? What has, in your experience, brought that on?
Long-term slavery.
The S word.
When you're people of color and you're sold for $1, the long-term effects in your DNA of still believing everything is about that $1 is a hard thing to shake. So I feel when you talk about, not to get too spiritual, to put people in the heebie-jeebies, but it's in your DNA, right? They often say that you can feel what your ancestors have gone through, but some of those turn out to be almost generational curses.
Yes, definitely.
And from that perspective, if you have a people who have been bought and sold and traded,
right?
How do you then decide that money is not based on the money I make today, but I'm going to grow my money for future generations and create generational wealth?
Because that wasn't even a thought. That wasn't even...
You want to live.
Right.
Survival.
Yeah.
And then you will sell out your brother so that you can survive.
And also you will always look at the ones that were at the height superior to you. And that's where you would spend your money because obviously they know what it is that they're doing.
And you hear people talk about crabs in a barrel. Think of it from a slavery historical perspective. Me and you on the chopping block. They can sell one us. Do we both work together to be better? No, because we know one of us is going to get sold, beat, slaved, traded, etc. So then do I help you?
No. Absolutely not. I'm going to tear you down.
Right. So to me, I feel when I think of my divine calling in the fact that when I was 5 years old talking to my grandparents about my piggy bank, and that my first summer of selling mangoes, which is what me and my cousins did.
You sold mangoes on the side of the road as a child?
I did. We took the patio furniture all the way to the end of the driveway. And the goal was we were supposed to sell the fruits off of our family trees, ganapes, mangoes, pigeon peas in the bag that you shell with your grandma on the afternoon for 25 cents. And I decided I hated rolling quarters. So I told my cousins, younger and older, we're going to now sell 3 for $1 so we don't have to roll quarters. People can give us $1. And that was like my family joke was, why would a 5-year-old tell these 7 and 8-year-olds that we're no longer selling for 25 cents?
You were very precocious.
It worked because my piggy bank was much fuller than my cousins at the end of the summer. And the lesson in financial literacy was at the end of the summer, my grandmother took us all to Finco. And we met the bank manager. You put on your finest clothes and you get to deposit your money and introduce yourself to the manager, and they know who you are. And they say, Miss PJ, how much money did you make this summer?
Oh, wow.
And it was like a rite of passage. When you go at the beginning of the summer, all the grandchildren had their own appointments. And you started with what your goals were. And at the end of the summer, depending on what your goals were, my grandparents matched you to go back to the States or to Eleuthera or wherever the cousins were living.
That was not very much commonplace. I like that. I like that a lot. I wonder how many commercial banks would still accommodate such an endeavor for young savers. Because I think we do need to get back to a culture of financial literacy, especially embedded in the generation so young. Because a lot of the kids, they don't know. And things have evolved. So the traditional way of quote unquote saving, because you get 0.00% on your savings account now, so it's not attractive. So we do have to teach them the alternatives to investing and letting their money grow. And I know money works.
You want to make your money work for you?
How? How do we do that in 2023?
Well, I think it starts with that. Because if your child understands, think of your allowance. You have Logan. And you
She's not
teach
gonna
her
have fun.
a reward system where if she cleans her room, she makes an A, she makes a B. It's all different depending on your achievement.
Okay.
And then they say, but Daddy, I want a bike.
Right.
Well, we're going to help you create checkpoints along the way to earn your way towards that bike.
Okay.
So then when you end up on a job, you earn your way towards bonuses and promotions. Is your goal to buy a C-class Benz and then go to zero? Is it to go to Italy on some vacation and then you start from scratch? Or are you going to put things in place that, yes, you're going to reward yourself, but you're also going to save for the long-term goal? That's where you get from the short-term goal to the long-term. So when you're talking about those 5 points being your purpose,
Right.
identifying it, overall, when you're studying, going to high school, going to college, deciding if you're going to be an athlete, whatever you're going to do, what's your ultimate purpose? Then you're talking about your mission. What is the mission if you start a business? What is the mission of that business? Who is its ideal customer? Who are you trying to reach? Who are you not trying to attract? Then you think about the vision. What is the overall vision of where you're going?
Right.
And then what is the short baby steps to start it off? And where is that taking you long term? And when you're talking about the financial side, it also should not just be about, oh, I want to help the world. Because every nonprofit is not successful. Because you could be helping everybody and making no money.
Right. And you can't help anybody without money.
Right. So I ultimately kind of tease and say, yes, I feel my goal is to help entrepreneurs through the various stages. But I also feel from my personal mission is to be able to do what I have to do so that I can do what I want to do with who I want to do it with, where I want to do it. So I want to be able to make money so that I can do what I want to do, travel, spend time with my family, where here in the Bahamas, in Europe, in Texas, wherever I want.
Right.
When you don't have money, you don't move when you want. Your boss says 8 o'clock, be to work, swipe in, you're late, you're penalized. Can you go on vacation if you ain't got no money?
No. Well, technically, you could borrow it, over leverage yourself.
And then what happens? You pay 22 to 24% on that vacation.
Yeah.
That I got to pay cash for because I saved for it.
What do people normally say, especially the ones that are in that, minimum wage? I sound so pretentious and what do you call it?
Blue collar, white collar,
Right.
they call them those too.
Lower middle class to minimum wage. They always say they can't afford to save or invest. They're always going. They have that I am stuck mentality. I can't do anything, but I don't have time for this. I don't have the money for this. Is that true in your experience?
My first job here was in the Bahamas at Atlantis. I made $300 a week, woohoo, in VIP services.
That sounds like a lot.
What? I thought I was balling because we made more than the front desk. But what I decided really early at 21 was I was not going to spend my salary.
How could you afford not to spend your salary?
I decided as a goal that I would double my pay by getting $300 in tips every week. Because I was like, my friends in the States, I went to a good college. Come on. I went to Columbia. It's an Ivy League. I got friends working at Goldman Sachs and doing all these things. And I'm coming to the Bahamas to make $300 a week. They thought I was crazy. But I decided very quickly when I went in to negotiate my salary, you don't have no work experience. You ain't never worked in no hotel. What you trying to do?
You can't command anything.
What can I command but a smile? So what does a smile give you in hospitality, Jay?
The bottom front desk or concierge services. Yeah.
So how do I then decide, being in the lower echelon of the service industry, minimum wage, that gratuities come with performance? It's performance-based, what I learned at 5. And I decided that if I smile and I do all the rules that they say, I check you in, I ensure that your room is clean by inspecting your room, and I say, is there anything you need, sir, while you're here on vacation? I'm your concierge, so you can call me. I get $20 to check you in, $100 if I walk you to the room, and I just need to do that to make $300 a week in tips, and I don't have to touch my pay. And then I decided, do I want to do like my colleagues and go get salary deduction to go to the car dealership and drive a fancy car? No. I got a used Honda Civic. I stayed living with my grandparents.
Okay. You didn't rush out the house.
And I banked. And I said I decided that I wanted to have my first place that I move into be a multi-family unit that I could earn income on. How did I know to do that at 21? Examples.
So are people more the product of their environment and their family tree?
Definitely. You don't grow in a vacuum. You don't see a Hawaiian pineapple growing in Alaska.
True.
So
how do you break that thread then? If you didn't grow up in the right circumstance, you didn't have that Grammy that walked you into Finco, that taught you savings at 5, you don't work at Atlantis, but you're making $300, the tips are limited because you're not in that service industry. You're dealing with disgruntled behemoths who are scratching themselves, so they don't really have enough to tip you at $20 and $100. What do you do? How do you work it? What advice would you give somebody?
Volume. Because if you work as a bellman at the airport, $5 tips, $10 tips, what do you have to do to double your salary? You just gotta be on your grind. Maybe you need a side hustle. In the US, you see that's where the Ubers and the DoorDashes come in, right?
So Craven.
Yeah. So here you got Craven. You've got all this society is geared towards entrepreneurial thrift. It's so small based on population. There are so many ideas when you travel, read, watch television. They don't even have it here. So why can't I be like the Albrys and Craven and say, gosh, I see DoorDash in the States. I see Uber Eats. Why can't I come do that here and come up with my thing? And then 3 or 4 other people decide to do it, and whoever does it best wins. Whoever has the best customer service, understands their purpose, their mission, their vision, their short-term goal, and their long-term goal. So do you have to be bred with it? That helps. But anybody who is making $300 a week on the front desk as a housekeeper, housekeepers get tips.
They do.
So think if you go get your Hershey's Kisses from the grocery store and you write a handwritten note as a housekeeper and you thank your guest. I'm the housekeeper assigned to clean your room during your stay. I hope you have a wonderful stay. I left these Hershey's Kisses as a token. If anything, here's a nice envelope should you need to leave anything extra. I would appreciate it, but it's not required. Do you think...
You can't do that in the hotel.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, depending on the hotel. I've traveled and I've been to hotels where that's the standard. That the housekeepers do have handwritten notes like that in your room.
What?
To put in an envelope.
Well, I haven't been in a hotel in a while. I've gone completely over to Airbnb.
So from a brand perspective, why do you think that hotel is allowing their housekeepers to do that?
From a brand perspective, it shows that we care. Our employees cares about your stay. It reflects positively on us overall because we're picking the right people to take care of you.
And what does that do to the housekeeper who gets an extra $10, $20, $30?
It empowers them and keeps them happy in their long term, so you don't have the high volume and turnover because you're paying them the minimum.
But how much are they taking home?
Enough to take care of them and extra.
So when they go get their Hershey's Kiss or their Andes Mint and leave it on your pillow, then what? Or fold your towel into a duck. You've seen when you go to a swan or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen those. I can't remember what they call it, origami or something like that.
Origami, yes.
Yeah.
So think of then the staff retention from that company that empowers their lower minimum wage entry-level service to do things like that. The strength of their brand over time versus a hotel which wouldn't allow you to do it.
I got it.
So
there's attention to the details, paying the bottom line.
yes, and it goes from the floor up. So when you talk about, do I need to have a Grammy take me to Finco in order to do it? No. I might have learned that behavior from a coach when I played a sport. I might have had a great teacher that mentored me. I might have worked at a place like that had employee incentive programs to make me a better person. Or I might read, watch TV. When you're watching YouTube and Netflix, what are you watching?
You're consuming media and content, but that content is based on something it's based on the human experience. It may be fictional, but those are things, tangibles, that you could take away from that media and apply to yourself.
So if you think on a long-term goal perspective, that every step you make is consistent with your mission, vision, purpose, short-term goal and long-term goal, will the content that you consume be different?
Definitely, because you're going to curate your content to help you to evolve as a person.
So if you are Tarzan, king of the jungle, raised by whatever he was raised by, I can't even remember.
Apes and monkeys and cheetahs, I think.
So could not,
Panther.
based on his desire, curate his content to create the life he wants?
Yeah, definitely.
So when you hear these stories, how they rags to riches, I was in debt and I became a millionaire, it's because they curated their content.
I always tell people that you have to take the time to audit your circle. I definitely believe your network is definitely your net worth, right? And you should not be the smartest person in your circle. And there's nothing, and I said this last, I think 2 podcasts ago, it's like, there's nothing wrong with hanging around with dumb people.
It is.
Yeah?
Yeah, because if you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with, and you're always teaching those other 4 people, who's teaching you? If you're always pouring into, man, I need to borrow this. Oh, I got this big idea. And you're always investing into them, pouring intellectually and emotionally. Who's pouring into your dream? So maybe not necessarily dumb, maybe not necessarily poor, but when you're talking about those 5 principles, where are they on the food chain? If you got the Benz driving, over leveraged, credit card maxed out friend, and y'all always go to dinner, who's paying every time y'all go to dinner?
Well, like you.
And do you want to live like that? It's a choice. Do you want to be the bottle popper every time? Some people's ego loves that. They like having everybody go, please help me, Jay. I need your help, man. And they like get off on that. I don't get off on that. That don't do nothing for me because it doesn't meet my 5 principles. It doesn't go with my purpose.
So are you encouraging people in 2023 and beyond to switch it up?
Oh, most def. You got to always reinvent yourself. Think of it from this perspective. You know, I love my analogies.
Right.
You're a doctor, you go to med school. You in the very beginning, you're doing that intern stuff, you're doing your residency.
Right.
If you want to earn more income, you got to specialize.
You definitely do.
And then they continue to get recertified.
That is true.
And then if you look in our society, then you see these doctors running for political positions and they invest and they get in real estate. What are they doing? Leveling up.
Reinventing themselves, always going up. Can't stay in the same place.
And when the dollar, Mr. Crypto, starts to decrease or increase in value, can you still make the same $300 that I was making in 2000?
Oh, that's a totally different era. Yeah, definitely.
You got to do something because the dollar value is shifting.
Yeah.
So if you don't level up, you're going to get left behind. And your group have to be surrounded with people who are leveling up together.
Who
or you're going
to
to leave them behind.
Definitely. That's why I love to keep my circle very small, right? I have various circles.
Yes.
And a lot of them don't overlap.
So you have a circle for this thing, your fun circle, your travel circle, your intellectual.
I don't really travel with people, you know. When I travel for work. So it's a destination wedding, covering a conference, taking artists over to a gig, that type of thing. That's, I mean, leisure travel for me would be Japan. You know what I mean? Maybe some countries in Africa. Don't want to see Europe. Not really a fan. Maybe Might go to Romania to see Andrew one of these days and driving this Bugatti. I don't know. Maybe it depends, right? But that's how I look at travel. So I travel by myself. I'm a lone wolf, right? So I don't have a travel group. I have my football fantasy group. I have my entrepreneurial friends. Sometimes they may overlap or whatever the case may be. I have my older friends, where I get my wisdom from, where I get life experience from, just picking brains and what's not. I'm an introvert,
So if you were the sum total of your 5 people, do you feel you are pouring out of your vessel equally than people are pouring into you, or do you think you got a great
I think we
law
have
of averages
I think we have a great law of averages. It's pull and take, intellectual property, sometimes financial, sometimes support, emotional support. It's balance. You can't, like you said, you can't be that one person giving everything, because at the end of the day, when your vase is empty, no one's trying to give you that water.
No. And if you're going to succeed in any type of business, you need supporters. You need fans. You need, sometimes they call them Pied Pipers. Someone to say, you need to hire him. You need to do business with her.
A little nepotism goes a long way.
But is it nepotism?
It is.
I think.
It is. It is.
Not always.
Here's the thing. My whole thing is this. As long as it doesn't give us traditional nepotism, because I'm qualified to do the work.
That's why I say not necessarily.
That's quality. So I'm qualified. I just need the opportunity. And if my person, it still fits the definition of nepotism, because it's a familiar endorsement.
Yes.
Right?
But if you had 4 dumb friends, 4 broke friends, who's gonna give you the endorsement? Brokey?
Oh, you definitely will listen to that, bro.
I mean, think about it. I mean, let's be practical.
Right.
Yes, you might have a mentee who you see the potential in, and over time, they then become one of those people who then start referring you business.
Right.
So it depends on what that role, Brokey, Mr. Broke, whatever you want to call them, Mr. or Miss Broke. We don't want to seem, gender neutral. We don't want to see like nobody win. The goal is everyone in your circle has to win.
Definitely, because once you win, if nothing's going on with them, you're not going to hold whatever proceeds or rewards that you've attained very long.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny, like when you talk about like our symbiotic relationship, at the various stages of your professional career and mine, we've now had that opportunity to connect in business.
Yeah.
Personal.
Yeah.
You and your wife are friends with me and my husband, and we can say, this person does good work if we need to give a referral.
Definitely.
So when it comes to I get to check the box and say, you are part of my purpose.
Oh, look at that.
Because I have people now in my circle that are consistent with my purpose, mission, and vision that I'm comfortable co-signing. Nobody wants to refer someone who's going to look bad on you.
That's true. That is true. That is definitely true.
So I think that goes with my personal brand, how it kind of transitions into the businesses that I've started, because they are all consistent with that. And when I'm talking about like even how I fell into finance was after moving to the States, working with the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, as an employee, having to walk away from my business, which originally was not the intent.
Right.
Because I was supposed to be able to, based on my position, do both.
Right. It's always that promise.
It's always
Don't worry.
a promise.
We love you. You can do whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
And the minute you sign that contract, you're an employee. I own you. 9 to 5, a couple hours extra. Don't even think about doing anything. You can't compete. I know the spiel. If you don't put that in black and white, blah, blah, blah. No. Don't track my time. As long as I'm producing for you, that's it.
Yeah. And then that allowed me to, having lived in an entrepreneurial lane, to now I'm an employee lane. I'm just like every other person who's going to work 9 to 5. And then I have to make a decision. What am I going to do about my retirement? I'm middle management at that point. I'm not anywhere close to the top of the food chain, right? I'm not at the bottom either. But what am I doing about my retirement? What about my pension? What about my 401k? And you know, all those things run through your mind like any other person. And I started to pursue knowledge, pursue information. Because am I going to stay here forever? I'm going to wait till my goal watch or the party days give you at 65 when they kick you in your behind? What am I doing?
I don't even know about that.
So then here I am sitting in Texas, running the tourist office in charge of 28 states, marketing, doing all this stuff, building the corporate brand, which at that time they were very interested in rebranding.
Okay.
And then I realized something. Is this consistent with my mission, vision, and purpose? It was at a time because one of the aspects of the rebranding was coaching travel agents and meeting planners on how to sell the Bahamas, know more about the destination to create repeat visitors.
Okay.
Not just one-stop bucket list of going to the Bahamas, never coming back.
Right.
So I was doing so much work coaching meeting planners and travel agents. They're sitting in my office till 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, wait, I was doing this before, but it seemed like I was making a little bit more money when I was doing it myself.
So you had to wait, okay, time to switch it up again.
Switch it up, reinvent, level up, right? And it came the perfect opportunity, like the perfect storm, to be able to say, oh, contract renewal, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? Is this now the next move? And I went back into entrepreneurship. But I then started to really decide products and services. When you are a coach, a trainer, and you're selling yourself as a service, you can only sell as much as many hours in a day.
That is true.
So how do you increase your income? Through products and services that can make money while you sleep.
And the essential ones at that.
Yes.
Always in demand.
Right. So if I'm going to sit and give you advice on how to invest and create your 401k, because I just taught myself how to do it, what better way to then be able to get paid for that than to become a licensed financial advisor who can sell you that product or service?
Speaking of financial advisors, like how long did it take for you to get that license?
Oh, well, the good thing is it happens in stages on the U.S. side.
Okay.
You can spend 60 days basically getting like an intro insurance license and like life and health. And then over time, you see people do several series of security licenses. And certified financial planner. You see all these acronyms after people's names, you know? So all of those are different certifications. I have some people in the community, my financial community, that it took them 6 and 7 and 10 years to get all of the securities licenses to be able to sell like mutual funds and things like that.
Right.
I didn't do all of that because I've got other things going on. And some of it is very exclusive.
Right.
So like, for instance, if you have a certain level of a securities license to be able to sell things, you cannot have any other businesses in your name because they don't want you to be unfair in the products you recommend.
Right.
So some of that, can't do it.
Right.
You think I'm going to give up all my other businesses to sell you one product?
True. Makes sense.
No.
That's smart. That's very smart.
So I got as far as I needed to get to be able to stay in the lanes in which I live to be consistent with purpose.
And that comes with knowing yourself and having an idea of your overall goals so you know when not to cut off your nose to spite your face.
Right. Which is similar to how I got into travel, which is I love to plan. If you're a planner, you're selling your time.
True.
The only way that you can make commissions off of the hotel you stay at, the rental car you book, the cruise you book, is to become a travel agent to be able to earn those commissions. Otherwise, I can only charge you to plan your wedding. In the photography game, that's why people are selling photo books and all those other things are products and services. Because you can only shoot so many hours per day as you.
Right. And when you have your online gallery, hey, my print shop, you could print right from there, so you have all that residual coming over time. A wedding you shot 2 years ago, Grammy wants a new picture to put on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the leveling up. Because you may have started with your camera and you're maybe shooting photos at the Tribune or the Guardian or something.
Yeah, I did my full tour. I hit every single one of those buggers off my list. Started with JCN in the Journal, went over to the Tribune, and I just recently ended a stint with the Guardian. I got featured in there with photos a while back, but officially I've done my tour and I'm done.
Yeah, so if you're leveling up in order to be part of your mission, vision, and purpose, then you're going to have to set a short-term goal, which is maybe I want to buy some new lenses. Maybe I want to buy a new camera. Maybe I need a different tripod, so maybe I got to hire somebody. And long-term, what's the goal? To have the empire called
JMP Studios.
Imagine how that works.
Imagine how that works. I'm getting better at the delegation and team building. It's hard, especially when you built a brand over 15, 20 years, right? And now you have all these young pops. I want to work. I want to be an editor. I want to do this. And you give them the workflow and you give them the expectations. They fall short. It's very hard to find good people, but I've been blessed. I've reached out to some of my peers and we share it up. So now people look at me more as a super producer, like an executive producer. And I get it more than a filmmaker or whatever the case is, because everything. When I edit my videos, hey, Craig, what's going on? Kenny, what's going on?
Yeah.
Hey, I need a second shooter. Hey, Manny, what's up?
And, you know, the key thing is it's hard to find good people.
Yeah, definitely.
But
quality people. It's very hard to find quality people.
But it's a mindset. Because you can find someone with no skill, but they have the mindset to go somewhere long term, and then you have to spend the time to train them. And they then become an amazing person.
Risky.
It is risky. But in life, what do you do without risk?
I mean, there is no reward without risk. But when you're talking about pouring intellectual property that you've attained through experience, and you have to leverage your time to teach somebody, when these people, and I'm talking with you young, ungrateful, don't want to work, spiteful, see people things, niggas. And I can say that because Urkel can't do me nothing and I'm behaving, and we can say those words without any type of repercussions. Come at me if you want me, if you want to.
Okay.
But they
exist. You cannot have a democratic society without having all of those, because they serve their purpose.
I'm
as well
afraid
as
for this generation. I am afraid for this generation.
So you have a new baby, not so new.
Yeah, she'll be 1 at the end of the month.
Okay, so when she was first born, did you give her an 8-ounce bottle of cereal?
Not 8, but 4. I mean, she could suck down 8 if she wants to.
No, the day she came home, it was a little 2-ounce little some bottle, breast milk or a little formula.
She breastfed, but my little girl, she could take a bottle. Like she's different from Logan.
And then later, you get solid food.
Yes, she's on solids now.
Okay, so why would you not do that in an intern or someone that you've identified as a pup in your business? Some people, where they go wrong, Jay, is they start you with the solid food from day one.
The issue with that is you don't necessarily so, right? Because I did let me hire someone as opposed to let me talk to one of my professionals and peers that this is exclusively what I do. You bring them on, you take on the liability, the expense, right? And they don't meet expectations. They don't have the work ethic. They don't spend the time that you've spent in YouTube University or whatever certifications to level up. They don't have the level of creativity that you need, and this doesn't work out. So you end up saying this. And for anybody in this particular service, take the time, find your peers, figure out who's good at doing what, and delegate. And you can always price them into your product. Outsourcing works. Now, you could charge $1,000 and try to get 100% of that 1,000 and work yourself hard and spend 6 hours to produce that product. Or you could charge $1,200, $1,300, right? Outsource and maybe net $800. And you spend 2 hours on the product.
Yes.
Which is worth more.
depending on the task. Because long term depends on your short term or long term goal.
Because if I shoot for 2 hours and I make 8, and after that, and because I could send the product out that's finished, I could do another gig or 2 other gigs in that 6 hours and make what, $2,400? Come on, man.
If freedom of time is your goal, then that works.
Freedom of time is always the goal because time is worth more than money.
But you had to decide freedom of time was your goal when you started, or you'd have been sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to do it all yourself.
True. That is very true.
So how can you go anywhere without a plan? And that, I think, is the craziness of it, is that when people start a business, the mindset that happens, I call it like a moneymaker's mindset, right? Is the fact that you can get stuck in solopreneur land so easy, where you're doing it all. You're designing all your own little graphics, you're in Canva, you're doing your little website on Squarespace, like everything is you.
Right.
But then when you turn 95, we won't say 65, who's that business going to?
Right.
It's gone.
Done.
So if your goal is succession planning, you got to then decide, are you going to outsource forever? You got to have someone to be able to take it over.
My whole thing is, I think it all depends on the type of business, I think we all want to have that legacy where everything that we built is passed on to the little ones or whoever, right? And it just doesn't work that way because everybody has their own quirks and passions. Like, if Logan came to me and said, hey, I don't want to be a creative, I don't want to be a teacher, Boost and JMP could just be, JMP Studios is mine. The financial aspect of that's generated because of that could be passed on through real estate or money. And Boost could work with a board of directors. You hire that could continue on and you could run it.
But you still have to run it.
Yeah. So I'm sure, we're definitely going to do financial literacy and business management.
But you can't just have them not be part of it. I mean, you can, I guess. You can sell the company for $10 million or whatever you see in the paper, and then it goes into the wind, and now the money is part of your family's generational wealth, right?
Sure.
But you still have to have the acumen. One of my best friends is Ann Wells, and people know her father as being he was a deputy prime minister at one point.
Right.
Before he passed away, her mother was a successful attorney, Stephanie Wells, and they had 3 children.
Right.
So they developed lots of businesses, and each child runs their own aspect of it. But back to the family, I remember when we were like in 5th and 6th grade, after school, guess where those kids were?
In the business.
In those businesses. And it's amazing to look at her now that both, unfortunately, her parents have passed on. But when she decides and when her family sits around the table, when they decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to sell this business? Are we going to keep this business? Are we going to be on the board? How are we going to keep the generational wealth going to our children and grandchildren? And being able to position now the children and grandchildren to be able to take that on and understand. So now you walk into those businesses and guess who's in there? The 10-year-olds, the 8-year-olds that are in their family. Because they understand how to now run a business. They could be a rocket scientist, decide they want to go to med school one day, which has nothing to do with the businesses. Or they could decide, I want to be able to know the business well enough to hire the right person to run it so that the wealth still stays in my family.
Okay, that's a very good way to look at it. That's a very good. Okay. Man, might keep it.
Right. I mean, it's funny, like with me, everybody's like, but you didn't even finish law school. You're a law school dropout, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, offended. No, but I realized I didn't want to practice law specifically in the traditional sense. So yeah, I did go to law school. It was great. And at the end I was like, oh, wait a minute.
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it like this. But since my grandmother has now retired, I still run her law firm. I'm not even a lawyer. Why? Because it's still a business.
You're managing it.
That is a company. And any clients that are old clients, I outsource to attorneys who are able to handle those tasks. And I'm able to still keep the name on the marquee for future generations until I decide to hang it up. So you call us right now at Douglas Sands, an associates law firm, and we can handle the same things my grandmother was handling when she was sitting in her office on Shirley Street.
Interesting.
I didn't even go to law school and I got a law firm. How about that?
Not bad for a dropout.
Not bad for a dropout. Kanye would be proud.
Kanye would be very proud of you right now. Don't do
Won't
that.
do it. We're not gonna talk
Don't
about that. No,
do that. Don't do that. Don't leave my boy alone. Leave him in peace in Ghana. All right?
But, you know, that's the principle, right? Because you talk about they may not necessarily take the academic path with which to do it in the traditional sense.
Right.
But you got to do it differently.
Yeah.
You have to level up. And part of the conversation, you know, that made me decide, do I want to do all of the things that it entailed? And the next stage was like bar school, which was like 9 to 5. Like, ooh, who wants to do that if I don't want to be a real lawyer going to court?
Get your nice collar and your wig.
I know, wouldn't it have been fabulous? But from that perspective, I said, let's work together and create a succession plan for your business so that you would be proud. And so if we have a niece or a nephew or a grandkid, great-grandkid who one day becomes a lawyer, that might be the person who then becomes a managing partner and works in it.
Nice. You have already the foundation. You have this built brick and mortar business, like has name, legacy, all that stuff that just step right into it. That's a perfect plan. And it works. So it is possible to build these things with little to zero capital. It takes persistence, planning to make these things happen. That's great. Now, that's the business and the branding aspect of it. We're not in 2023.
We are.
People are setting resolutions and doing, what do you mean yuck? What do you mean yuck?
You resolve to go to the gym on day 1. You buy a membership. And then when you're still fat on June 1st, don't do it.
Don't set yourself up like that?
No. I cheat on my resolutions.
How?
Every November at Thanksgiving, I do my projections for the next quarter, and I spend the entire month of December deciding what I'm going to shoot down and implementing those strategies. So on January 1st, I have no pressure because I've already started. And it's either didn't work and I killed it, or it's going great.
Huh. Okay. That's smart.
So yuck. Yes.
Don't set yourself up.
No.
Don't put pressure on yourself.
No.
Just what should people be doing right now?
You should be doing your financials. One of the big things I think is the biggest reason people's businesses fail. And statistically, you'll see that most small businesses fail within the first 3 to 5 years due to capital issues.
Right. That's real. That is real out there.
So if you ran a monthly recap, the joy of being in the United States or in a jurisdiction that has taxes is they force you to do a financial recap when you file your taxes. If you live in a jurisdiction like the Bahamas where there's no income tax requirement, you should still be doing the same thing. You should be looking at your P&L, your profit and loss statement. How much did you spend every month? What were the months where you spent a lot? Where were the months that you spent a little?
Right.
You made a lot. You made a little. And if you look at your annual financials from 2022, you plan better for 23.
Gotcha.
You know how many times you look at your I'm an Apple person, and I look at those subscriptions and I'm like, why am I paying $4.99 for that?
I know, right?
But if you did a monthly financial overview, you would have noticed that you did buy that app for $4.99 and you never used it. Get rid of it. If you need it bad, go back and restore the purchase and resume from that period. So I think what every person should really be doing while things are a little quiet is looking into the past. Not mournfully into the past, but strategically into the past. And that's why big companies win. Because at the end of the year, they're forced due to a financial because they have an annual meeting, which happens in January or February, where they're accountable to their shareholders say what happened.
I got one of those coming up. I got one of those coming up.
So don't you think you're going to make smarter decisions when you have to be accountable to a board?
Oh, definitely.
So guess who your board is as you?
As a solo.
Yeah, you. And your accountant who might be helping you because maybe that's not your forte.
Right.
Maybe it's the people in your circle that you bounce things off that once you run the numbers.
Right.
You know how many people who do electronic banking don't even download their bank statements to see what they spent last month?
And once they do, I bet you take a look and tally those micro bank charges. You would squeal.
And how many times did you choose to go to the ATM across the street when you could have driven 5 minutes and paid less fees?
Right.
I bet you when you run them numbers and see how much you gave, you would then make different decisions.
Listen, I almost had a heart attack the other day. I had to use my American card here.
Ooh, how did that feel?
I was so mad.
The international exchange fee, then the ATM fee. And then I see some places they want to charge you, oh, you used the credit card, we can charge you an extra $20 just because, and you see a second swipe. What is that? I'm like, where do they do that at?
Only in the Bahamas.
Only in the Bahamas.
Only in the Bahamas. So we have about 10 minutes left on the podcast. And I definitely want to leave the viewers very hopeful. I know 2023, the financial forecast is a very light to moderate recession, even though I felt that we've been in a recession for a while, and the powers that be, the Fed, the American government, did not want to concede, so they kind of, bent the tree a little bit, bent the definition, even though, but it's a moderate one because the job market was still doing good, real estate was still up, but other markets were crashing down due to the hikes from the interest rates, right? How can I, as a low to middle class earner that understands that putting my money in the bank is like bleeding myself dry, how do I level up? What instruments are there that I can take advantage of within my jurisdiction or even out by doing a little maneuvering? Because you still can do things. Don't feel that you're limited here because you live here. You still can do certain things. What can I do? How can I make that sacrifice? If I'm willing to make that sacrifice, what should I sacrifice and where can I sacrifice?
Okay, number one instrument. In the Bahamas, when I was 21 years old, I bought a universal life insurance policy.
And that's different from term and all. It's universal life.
Permanent insurance.
Okay.
One, because it provides a vehicle that you have life insurance. So
Right.
now you're talking about legacy
Okay.
and protecting your debts or businesses or family.
Okay.
But two, it also has an investment strategy component. Where say your life insurance is $100 a month. The cost of the insurance might be $70.
Okay.
And they'll tell you, but pay $100 because that $30 is going to an investment portion. And usually the interest rate is upwards of 5, 7, 8% on that now little $30 that you put in. But if you pay attention, they actually provide a cap, which is they'll say, yes, we can give you $100. You can pay $100, but you might be able to pay $1,000. You could pay $2,000. And depending on the face value of that policy, say you get $100,000,
Right.
has a smaller bucket that you can put in the investment portion than someone who might buy $1 million has a bigger bucket. So you see a lot of people who are financially literate use the simple vehicle of life insurance through index universal life policies to be able to get 8 and 10 and 12% on their money that you could have put under your mattress.
And that's here.
Right here. My first one was at Global, which is now Kalina, which I still have that policy to this day.
So Kalina has the universal.
Yes, most insurance companies who sell life do. I'm sure all of your favorite companies probably have one.
I will definitely be reaching out to buy insurance. Oh my God.
Because if I'm a
5 to 12%?
Some even more. That's why you shop around for the vendor. So you want to make sure you're talking to a broker who can tell you comparatively what the best options are for you.
I definitely have an insurance agent on this podcast.
Yes, and I'd love to come back and talk to you about that. I think that's the number one. Because why do people are on GoFundMe? Because somebody dead and they're having a cookout because they got to bury Sally.
I hate what GoFundMe has become. I really hate what it's become.
Yeah, but if they had life insurance, then we wouldn't have to go have a cookout and sell
House and pig feet
to bury you.
Right.
Or when you got sick, you might have had a life insurance policy that had what they call living benefits, where if you're alive, depending on what has happened to you, you can tap into that face value and pay your medical bills now. Diagnosed with a terminal illness, get cancer, they say
that's available here?
right here. Living benefits.
Huh.
Yeah. So think of how people, again.
I've been looking at insurance the wrong way.
It is. People think it's something to do when you die. But you can use those same policies as an entrepreneur as a key person. Me and you are partners in business.
Right.
You have a heart attack, God forbid, and pass away. My business has been paying the premium. What should one of us die? It provides capital to the business to perhaps give your family the option to buy me out or me to buy you out. Those are different ways to use. So my number one, you don't want to die or get sick and you ain't got no insurance, because that's going to be the thing that's going to break the housekeeper or the millionaire, because you're going to leave behind all that debt. You're going to be sick and need to be airlifted and you ain't got no money to airlift you to Miami to see the expert or whatever. And you can sit around here and croak. Or you're going to have to pay $100,000 for some triple bypass surgery that you ain't got. So you got to go into your retirement and take that money out now to pay for that surgery that's emergent.
So okay. Now, when we're talking about insurance on whole, I think medical insurance is such a scam.
Nah.
I think so.
Depending on the company.
Like, what we had to pay in insurance for the wife when we had planned the babies. My whole thing is this. She is paying medical insurance. Why is it? Biologically, naturally, she's a female. She wants to get pregnant. We're paying for this coverage. Why is it that, one, you have to specify and then pay extra for the maternity aspect?
Because there are people whose life choice is not necessarily to do that. And that's also when you're talking, that's where I like...
That's the scam part.
Well, that's why I like being a broker, right?
Okay.
Because I'll talk to you from the U.S. perspective.
Okay.
Which is people pick and choose companies based on the benefits. So if I decide I want to have gastric bypass, I go with that company that doesn't charge me extra.
Okay.
If I'm having a baby, I go with that company that's going to give me all these other benefits should my baby end up in the NICU.
Now, a question that I always want to ask you, since you got into insurance. As you're Bahamian American, right?
I am.
As a Bahamian only, I don't have double passports. I just wasn't blessed that way, right? But I am globally minded. If something was to happen to me, I would like to have a more competitive insurance rate. Can I have an international insurance, medical insurance, so that if something was to happen to me and I need that coverage, I could jump on a plane and say, okay, I'll have my treatment here or wherever.
Yes.
Really?
I have Bahamians as clients who have U.S. medical insurance that covers their workups at Cleveland Clinic and all of that. And they pay less for that policy than they're paying for their Bahamian insurance.
Definitely. Okay.
Because you have a situation in the U.S. specifically where you have so many foreign nationals that are doing business there. They have plans specifically for people with no social, no ITIN. You have the illegal immigrant population.
Right.
Do you want all of them to get sick and not have any coverage? No. So they actually have products specifically for lower income people who might not have status. because they know the economic effects are greater. But the reason why, and that's how I got into it, because I was looking for solutions for me. Mm-hmm. So then when I realized, oh my gosh, I've had this policy since I was 21. What do you mean I can do XYZQUT with it? My agent who sold me, when I went back and told her what I knew about it, she said she didn't even know that. And she sold me the policy 20 plus years ago.
Because they're just looking on the basic commission.
Education.
I'm told to sell this. I will sell you this. And once I get it and whatever. My commission is done.
But it's about, remember when you said when you hired someone?
Yeah.
How were you trained?
Right.
And I think when you want your society to advance as a people, you still have to encourage people to get educated.
Do we really want our society to evolve?
You do. We want to level up everybody.
Do we?
We do.
In our personal circles, sure we do. As a society, from the government, no.
Why wouldn't you?
The more empowered your people are, the more money they make. The more money they make, the more educated they are. The more educated they are, the quicker they see through your political foolishness.
Well, maybe
so your lifespan is done. That generational elitism, that power that you had, it's over. So let's keep them crumbly and dependent on us long term. Now,
and how did that work for Putin exactly? How did that work for Castro exactly?
How does that work for the United States of America? How does that work for the Bahamas?
But when you think of
how's it working for Canada? How does it work? It's there. We can pick.
I can't control the government now. Let's talk. We're back. Let me bring you back to entrepreneurship specifically.
Right. We can control that within our circles, and we could break out those cycles.
Yes.
Right, and elevate ourselves and elevate the next generation and become mentors and great parents and pass on wealth as opposed to debt, and that should always be the goal. Mm-hmm. One of my biggest problems in our society as a people, we have become accustomed to passing on debt, and we use the excuse, and definitely it was real. Slavery was real, and it really put us at a huge disadvantage. And every time since, we've had to overcome certain obstacles because everybody had a head start, and we didn't.
Colonialism is still here.
It is still here. It is still real. But now that we are armed with information, we do have access. We have to start doing things for ourselves to get ahead, to push ourselves ahead. And there's a quote from a show that I watched that Ricky Gervais produced. Good men and women plant trees, right? So that the shade of, which they will never sit in, can shade someone else.
I love that.
And I think that's what we need to start doing as people.
And that's why you asked me for 3 things, but I feel like that's number 1. Mm-hmm. Because once you do that, you learn so much and you play such a good financial strategy on your family. It doesn't even have to be your business.
This year is going to be a very interesting year. Very, very interesting.
All about rolling those quarters.
Rolling those quarters. This has been the Full Gambit Podcast, guys. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know what type of topics you want to talk about in the comments below. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening. And remember, one good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Like, subscribe, and leave a review.